Your input. Jose year 2000 remember. Project Looking Glass. How did Charlie know he was going to die? By Candace EP290. At Real Candace O. Be inspired. Something happened in 1999, and it broke reality. At Rebecca Scott 630. When I was 15, I got pregnant with my then boyfriend. I told my parents. I made the decision to make an appointment to get an abortion. My parents were supporting my decision. When the time came, my mom and I went in, and they did the sonogram first. I'm so thankful and glad they did. I started crying. My mom started crying. I said, I'm sorry, I can't do this. When I saw my baby, something real hit me. And I could not do it. I'm so thankful and blessed I changed my mind. My son is 22 now and makes me so proud with his job and living on his own. Best thing of my life was having him. I will definitely be donating. At Rachel 780. Satan knows that his time is short. The same future that they kept seeing is that God wins. He always wins. At KKW 573. My dad was murdered with the COVID kill protocol after going to the ER to rule out a broken bone. In the end, no X-ray was given and his PCR test was not positive. Killed him with remdesivir. Refused to let his kids enter the hospital to see him or save him. Told me he was fighting them on treatment. I asked, isn't that the same as refusing treatment, which is his right? Medically kidnapped him as I scrambled to find someone within the law to help me rescue him. This happened in Arizona, a very criminal state, at the Banner Desert South Hospital in Mesa, Arizona. I am still not okay about this and never shut up about it. I want justice. At Farisman_Cello. I think I speak for everyone when I say we all want your cousin on the show. At Terrasamika 6739. Candace. Please interview Charlie's parents. My assumption is that they are being silenced. Help us understand what's happening with that. At Melamel 77. Guess that's why Albert Einstein said, the more I study science, the more I believe in God. At Kiki S9B8P. Candace is homeschooling the whole world. At Brendosart 1072. I was in a dinner situation with high-profiled people, and they were discussing buying properties. Specifically in Africa, but we were in the US. The person who said this had access to the White House, access to sounds in the movie and music industry, and is a brilliant person. He casually spoke to another person about the property he'd purchase in Africa, and the other person mentioned, that'll be a lot of traveling for you, I swear on my life. His casual response was, oh no, I'll just be teleporting back and forth. This was not a joke. The other person casually agreed, and they carried on with talk about properties. I stood frozen and almost felt scared that I heard something maybe a normal person like myself should not be listening to. Needless to say, the reason I was there was because of a job I was doing. I left that business because the amount of conversations I heard made me sick to my stomach and fearful for my soul. There are a lot of things Candace has said in the past year that has given me eerie flashbacks of those conversations I heard. Nothing is too far-fetched. At Dan_Brisbois. It's time to call your lawyers about what's going on with the Daily Wire. They're posting new videos on Instagram accounts that you no longer work for or control, using your name, face, and likeness to drive their own traffic and profit. That's unauthorized use and misrepresentation, and it crosses serious legal lines. They're leveraging your reputation because you're hot right now and trying to siphon attention, credibility, and money off your brand without your consent. That's not business, that's shady as hell, and it's exactly the kind of thing attorneys love tearing apart. Go lock this down before they keep running your identity like a rented billboard. At Maggie Wilson 5844. Candace, I just seen that Tucker Carlson created his own app so they can't censor him or his information. I downloaded it and it's legit. I think that would be an amazing idea if they decided to control/delete your free speech. Please like this so she sees it. At Nick of Truth Sloth 33. Hey Shannon, a tag/GateKid here. Total memory blackout from ages 4 to 10, the exact years I was at Fort Hood on base. Later 80 seconds, early 90s, military brat. Dad was a doctor doing residency adjacent to a biolab at the Army hospital. I wouldn't follow protocol as a kid after the program had skipped me a grade, etc. And so after the army, I got shuffled through 4 different schools that I later discovered are all connected to the DoD through Aspen Education Group. Think they changed the name eBay Docs, but yeah, and shell companies. I've gone through hell and back with loads of FOIAs to my name just trying to figure out what happened to me at Turnabout Ranch in Escalante, Utah, New Horizons Academy, now closed for abuse. In Marion, Indiana, its sister school/child slave labor work camp in middle of nowhere called Missinabie Woods Academy in Canada. They have another school in the DR, but I didn't go there. Also Darlington in Rome, Georgia, and of course Texas. The struggle is real. Keep up the good fight, Candace. Thanks for making it safe to talk about this publicly. Legit have gone through hell and back and know the neighborhood because of all of this. The weird phenomena is real. Lights break above my head when I flip a switch, cabinets slam when I get mad enough, and I guess connect with what I can only describe as stars that respond to my requests like please move or light up, etc. I know it sounds insane IDC though. It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And I am grateful I don't fit in. Not cut from the same cloth. But whatever happened to us as kids, we deserve answers. I personally don't care about retribution, just answers. You're giving us permission to speak our truth. Thank you. Christ is King BTW 4 got the most important part. And knowing my king is truly how I survived. I love this group of people and I love you, Candace. And I appreciate you and Ian and Baron and all of the peeps that don't give a rat's, but if there are planes overhead. Because he who is in us is greater than he who is in the world, and retribution is his. Email me, Candace. I wrote you, and I'm having trouble commenting on your recent video. Shocker. Thanks for sharing this. I have a lot more information, so please email me when you're not busy. Avalov33@proton.me. At DrewsyGirl. Since I started watching your show, I've experienced a real awakening, not only in my Catholic faith, but also in how I understand manipulation and how it operates. Your discussions have helped me open my mind and recognize patterns I hadn't been able to clearly name before. I've always been very sensitive to my gut instincts. I tend to absorb other people's emotions to the point where being around certain individuals can feel overwhelming or even physically uncomfortable. For a long time, I kept this to myself because I worried people would think I was crazy. But when someone has bad intentions, even if I don't consciously know them, I can feel it. Sometimes that energy makes me feel sick, and I've learned not to ignore it. That sensitivity is what led me to question certain events more deeply. For example, when Trump was shot at during the rally, something about it didn't sit right with me. I remember being struck by how quickly he got back up, even briefly, raising his fist and shouting, "Fight, fight, fight." At the time, it seemed strange, especially if there was still an active shooter and he was the clear target. I would have expected instinct to take over, to stay down, to hide, or even to go into shock. As I've thought more about it, I've found myself questioning the narrative and wondering whether the event was staged or manipulated to create a particular perception, specifically to portray one side as dangerously violent. I'm still processing these thoughts, and I plan to watch Tucker's podcast on the topic, since I haven't yet. More broadly, I've come to believe that the constant division between left and right is itself a tactic. I don't think those labels truly represent us. There are far more of us than there are of them, and if people weren't so divided, we would be far too powerful to control. Separation keeps us weak, distracted, and fighting one another instead of recognizing what's really happening. Thinking back, I also remember how different life felt before everything changed. Like how easy it used to be to walk through an airport without intense security. I was pregnant when 9/11 happened, and I remember telling my mother that something about it didn't feel right to me. While I initially believed it was a terrorist attack, part of me questioned whether the government had some involvement, especially regarding the plane that was said to have crashed in Pennsylvania. It all felt shadowy and incomplete. I know I may be late in coming to these questions, and that many others have already explored them, but this is where my own awakening has led me. I'm grateful for the work you do, because it has helped me trust my instincts, think more critically, and see manipulation for what it is, instead of dismissing those inner warnings I've felt my whole life. At Dandelion 789. Not only did Mike Pompeo threaten to assassinate Julian Assange, so did Hillary Clinton. And now the Clintons are in contempt of Congress for refusing to answer Epstein questions. Remember Hillary saying no one is above the law. Unforgivable. At Pambisley 9910. Project Looking Glass is just hard evidence that God exists. No matter how much they want to change the future, they cannot. He is in control, and they will lose. It is now time to choose a side. People are finally waking up. This is why they are growing angry and psychotic. At Abdulari. As we pray for Candace and her tribe, can we make a special mention for Skylar and Mark? Thank you both for walking with her. At Lindam 0123. I love that they came to a point where they found they cannot change the outcome moving forward. This is biblical. You cannot change the end of times. Only God has the power. We know how the story ends. God's in full control and he is good. At Gvmule, P9Q. In first or second grade, our teacher used the fruit of the loom label to explain what a Thanksgiving cornucopia was. At Jotisidu 362. At Real Candace Owens. You didn't conclude the story of Project Looking Glass. The punchline is that no matter what timeline they pushed, they always saw the same outcome, and that's the reason why they were so scared. It showed the end of them, not us. We would all wake up and see the truth. At Amanda Layton in 3381. Let's all remember, darkness is merely the absence of light. Darkness cannot be added, only light can be taken away. Darkness exists solely in the absence of light, and therefore cannot exist in the presence of that light. Be the light, everyone. At Maurice Lombardo 1237. CERN is located in Geneva, Switzerland, at a site some believe corresponds to the supposed location of Apollyon's tomb, called Apollyon in Greek, the destroyer, and Abaddon in Hebrew. Revelation 9 says an angel is given a key to open the abyss, over which Apollyon rules, and many see the massive underground tunnels beneath CERN, along with the Shiva, destroyer, statue, as symbolically connected to this biblical description of the abyss being opened. At James Flanagan 7693. It does say in the Bible that in the end times the scales will fall off our eyes, and we'll be able to see the things that the devil has been doing. At Loring 09. Pikachu definitely had a black tail in the 90s. At Grounded Inspiration 0000. I would have never thought in a million years that Candace Owens would cover stories about the Project Looking Glass, alternate realities, and time travel. Very cool. At Mernally_Francois. This is why we need to keep our Bibles, the written ones. At Ashgram 2186. The cats think it's ghetto here, one of the most accurate things I've heard in a long time. Love you so much, Candace. Keep speaking the truth. Charlie is so proud of you. Go Max. At Antoinetta Kankandi 3978. Candace, I am with you on the AI madness. People are telling me that I haven't embraced it because I am older. No, it's because I can see the damage it is already inflicting on my students, undergraduate. At Veden 7. Being a 15-year conspiracy theorist who has been to the bottom of a lot of rabbit holes, when I saw the title Operation Looking Glass, I said to myself, this woman has crossed over to the truly metaphysical. What a journey you've had, and I'm proud to stand by you. At Brian Hell 975. We should all pray together at once at 7 tonight. There's so much power in prayer. Not just in a believer's daily life, but also shown in experiments many churches have done. Let's pray for Candace's safety and action from our leaders. Let's pray for the people who are involved in killing Charlie to be exposed all at the same time. For repost this so it gains traction if you're in. At Jen Amanda 6035. Candace, one of your episodes, we should all take a minute to pray together, millions of us at once, to set an intention of love and leave into the world. Our collective conscious sending out love is so powerful. There are many studies showing the power of our thoughts on the physical world. So please, coordinate a group effort to spread love. Lynn McTaggart does this. She wrote a books about the field and intentions and how powerful we are all together. And if we collectively sound out the right vibes, I believe hope and faith will be restored. At Eelgrass Meadows. I was in GATE in Oregon in the 90s. I scored 98% in math and 99% in English. They took me to a government facility in 1991, was just an old trailer with really old furniture, and they told me they were testing my brain. I was so excited. They said they wanted to give me a special teacher, just for me. After they tested me and told me about psi abilities, they never did give me a special teacher, said Oregon schools could not afford it, but they did follow me throughout school. Those things really happened. They taught me to read huge batches binary code in 5th grade, though. A special teacher came in for that. I've had a lifetime of strange experiences. When I was 23, I drove home at night from my job, and for weeks tons of strange stuff happened. I couldn't remember getting home. I saw animals on the highway and just stopped to watch them. One night, I pulled over to a sunflower field and just walked into the field and stood there for what seemed like at least a half an hour. I felt stuck in my spot, frozen, and I was watching the bees sleep in the sunflowers. Isn't that strange to do at 2 a.m., all alone in the country? I wonder if these things are screen memories and they had me doing something. During the same time, I have only the memory of yelling at someone, laughing and telling them, there is no way I will ever forget this for the rest of my life. And whoever it was I was talking to said, you will forget. I think they're all tied together. My obsession with government testing citizens. I wrote a high school senior project 20-page paper titled Government Testing on Human Citizens Without Their Consent. My obsession with aliens' psychic abilities. You know, the government lady that tested me told me that the test they were giving me was different. That I don't answer it with my mind, but what I feel when I look at it. I said, the answer that sparkles. She said, exactly. I had a planned unassisted home birth with child. Unschooled at home. I didn't vaccinate my children back then, 2000s, BC. I knew it was wrong. I feel like I've known something since I was a child, but I can't get to it. Candace, I hope you continue to look into what they did to us smart kids. I think that it's a really, really big deal. Truly. It's what got me into conspiracies as a child. BC, when they tested me, they told me these things were real. I already knew about psychic abilities and things that sparkle. My dad taught me. So I knew exactly what they meant. That's why I was in the program. I didn't remember anything else, though. I always asked everyone and no one knew what I was talking about. I was the only kid on the program here, so I didn't have anyone else to bounce these experiences off of. They just told me I was weird and it didn't happen. So I would go to the library as a small child and get books about government conspiracies, aliens, magic, etc. I didn't just make all that crap up and get into it out of nowhere. As an 8-year-old? Not normal at all whatsoever for little kids to be reading that stuff. I think this happened to many children. Lots of us. At Rebecca Gale 4472. It feels to me like it's the last squeals of a dying demon. This gave me chills. Keep your foot on their necks, Candace. At Dizzy Wildflower. Candace, I know it sounds weird, but ever since I was a little girl I knew in my gut that when I was older I would be living in the end of days. Which is why I keep praying and believe in Jesus. I wonder if anyone else has had the same feeling or if it's just me. At Helena Hedegaard 4538. That Daily Wire video is creepy AF. OMG. It's like a stalker blatantly standing outside your front door staring in because he knows that what he is doing is ethically wrong and threatening to you, but he also knows that his toes haven't crossed the legal line. I'm sorry you're experiencing this. At Jacqueline Castellasfal. Candace, I very rarely leave comments on your episodes because a lot of the things I'd say are already being said by a host of others. I felt called to leave this comment. They are absolutely threatened by our consciousness. Our thoughts, in fact, do impact future events, and you're asking the right questions. What would happen if we all started focusing on eternal goodness and God? Something I have always felt in my heart to do, no matter how silly it made me feel, was to say, I do no consent to this, or I reject this, when watching something that doesn't align with the kind of world I want to live in. Imagine if we all started doing this. Isn't that why they get away with so much of the things they do? Because they tell us what they're doing and consent is implied. At Rebel Rain 57. Have you ever wondered why after 1999 the decades don't have any identity? Remember the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Every decade had its own identity. its own music, fashion, cars, etc. But since the year 2000, everything seems the same. At Christianj. Luke, I am your father. Definitely happened. At Arkansas Gators. This whole obsession with Israel by our political figures is disgusting. It's too bad they don't put as much effort into the concerns and problems here at home. Vote them out. At Max Ernst Younger. I was born in '84 and I guarantee you a film called Shazam existed starring the comedian Sinbad. I am 100% positive. This is real. At Elgajd. Erica Kirk. Once Charlie was assassinated. Once? That was a very, very weird thing to say, as if it was the plan. At Shelovis Jessus 12. I made several comments sharing about gate programs, so either YouTube is filtering certain comments or it's somehow getting deleted by YouTube. Wild. At J. Longton. Candace, this is the type of corruption that is destroying America and that I've been fighting against for over 2 decades. As a police officer in Corinth, New York, I tried to protect kids in my community from a politically connected pedophile that was actively molesting kids. The politicians and dirty judges destroyed my career and life for trying to protect the kids and for trying to expose this corruption that's destroying America. I started a political party named Stop Corruption back in 2008 to do my part. America needs to fight this corruption vigorously before it destroys us all. At Luz Maria King. Yes, indeed, Candace. Mike Pompeo tried to murder Julian Assange. As a devout Catholic, it broke my heart how they destroyed Julian Assange's life based on the fact that he unveiled the corruption of previous American administrations. At Green_Leaf. Population reduction is their mandate. They will stop at nothing to achieve results. Poison our food, water, air, clothing, cleaning supplies, and our medical system. Convince children to transition their gender and become sterile, become homosexuals, and that having children is bad. Force minorities into government-assisted housing and hoods, then introduce hard drugs and cheap firearms so they can kill each other. Make abortions mainstream, because careers and vanity are way more important. Start wars and watch our young men die for BS political outcomes. Continually use psyops to control the population and keep us distracted while perpetuating all the above. At Raid Wolf. This episode was the Candace and the Y-Files crossover I didn't know I needed. At Thumbs Interior Design 2906. Did you notice that all these recent movies are about the end of the world? They want us to subconsciously be scared in our brains, but in reality, it's the end of their eras. It's the years of the truth and God's timing. At Backwoods. D1C. She is cracking the matrix. This is amazing. At Nofe Archisi2. The harassment from the DW is absolutely disgusting. At Crystal Harmon 2018. CERN's logo is also 666 overlaid with each other like a tunnel or pit in the middle. At Haydon Duffy. I don't know what I love more tonight, that she's still going, smiling, and seems happy given everything coming at her, or realizing 5.7 million folks are getting the same revised history lesson at the same time. At Ledio Erlightshine 8646. I never thought I'd see the day where someone with as much influence as CEO would talk about Looking Glass. At Gmoney 8585. Man makes his plans, but only God knows the outcome. At Pinky Toe Drama. Mark's plane, not man's plane. At Alison War 1987. The day COVID hit, I'll never forget. Immediately in my gut, I looked at my mom and I said, this is something evil from the ones who rule the world. What are they doing? This is not a normal virus outbreak. I could just feel the evil. At Diana Vega 398. God continue to shield Candace and her family/crew from these demons. In Jesus' name, amen. At Jennifer Lee 9029. Daily Wire is threatening Candace with physical and psychological harm disguised as humor. They're fooling nobody. Pure evil. At Scummer Vacation 4616. Daily Wire posting on the old Candace socials is so weird and creepy. I can't imagine any PR people thinking that is a good idea. Elmo. Ben is such a whiny little baby man. At Anna 96727. It 100% had a cornucopia. I was folding laundry with my mom when I was 6 and I asked, why is that basket shaped to spill? And that's when I learned what a cornucopia was. At Jordan.Elaine. We have to make sure they don't write about the victims of Gaza, the way my jaw dropped at them just saying the quiet part out loud, but then again that is how they have been the past few years. I guess it still just shocks my soul. At Lissimilettery 9873. The Egyptian Air commercial is insanely creepy. And why are there flames at the end for an airline? At Megan Jones 8639. Yeah, they're saying the whole blue blood until it hits oxygen thing was never true. Am I the only one that remembers that? At Gabriel Kish. The Macron trans thing is just the tip of the iceberg. It's almost all of Hollywood. At Heather Nicola Digital. Does anyone feel like time is truly speeding up? Like where a year just went. The days are flying by. I say a lot lately it feels like a time warp. How many would notice if they were speeding up time? You'd have to sit and watch the time. Everything is digital, so how would we know? I actually read and watched videos. This is also what CERN is doing. Trying to speed up time. This whole episode is a mind trip. BC, it confirms how I felt and how everything feels different. At Tandesfied. You know what I find really sus about Erica Kirk? Is that if it were me, and my husband's good friend is doing everything in her power to find out who killed my husband, I would absolutely jump to help her in every way I possibly can. Videos, photos, names, sneak into conversations, address Tyler Boyer's sexual deviances, address Pews of Faith, and, in fact, close it down. I mean, if I were, God forbid, a widow with this circumstance, I would go to the end of the world to help my husband's friend find the murderer. The math isn't matting for me as a wife. At Daniel G. 1735. This consciousness stuff, when taken seriously and sought out, will lead one to find hostile entities ultimately. These entities hate God and His creation and seek our destruction. The ancient gods have not left, they are finally getting a foot back in the door. It is truly a spiritual battle. At David Thurman 1025. I really started noticing the whole good is evil and evil is good thing when they started to make movies about traditionally evil characters being misunderstood, and they are actually good Jewies. Like Maleficence or Wicked. There's so many more examples. At Deoxyribonucleic acid 4. This is how I know you are the real deal, Candace. No one else with your reach and connections talk about these topics while simultaneously standing firm for Jesus Christ. I appreciate you so much. God bless you. The labor pains have started. Matthew 24 verse 8. Evil is certainly panicking. As it should, because God wins. At DatoAF Danevang. I did some research about that NATO base in Romania that Erica worked with, and where that American General Otto, who was accused of running a brothel on, it is staffed by American and French soldiers. Just thought it might be relevant information. At Fasting Theft It Away. Just a few years ago, I was cleaning out my aunt's house, who was a hoarder. In a room I found the very first tampon mail-out. It was a single tampon wrapped in plastic with a pamphlet on how it will change how women have to deal with their periods. I was shocked why she would keep weird things. Well, in this room was every empty package from her underwears. She kept them because of the cornucopia. She called it Jesus' fruit basket and thought it was a sin to throw the image out. So I had to find clever ways to throw things away and help her get rid of the extensive hoarding issue. But when I threw out the 30+ undie packages, she lost her mind and went through the garbage to pull them out, saying it was as bad as ripping pages out of the Bible. This wasn't a déjà vu event. This was a fight to throw out garbage. I cannot believe they are trying to convince us that the cornucopia was never there. It was very there. At Herrickson 6779. Yes. Interview Kathy O'Brien. She is an M*K*ULT*RA survivor that was *ficked in the White House and Pentagon. She has been speaking out since the 1990s. Her voice needs to be heard. At Meredith Seifert. Daily Wire is terrifying. This is definitely a threat. I regret ever supporting them. At STB 2324. My awakening started in 2020. Not only because of the COVID, but also I saw on YT the opening ceremony of the Gotthard Tunnel in Switzerland from 2016. That was the beginning of a long road for me, but it was just impossible to unsee after that. At Greg.617. Holy fuck, this shit is crazy. At Benji Hinsoniai. Fruit of the Loom absolutely had a cornucopia. I remember commercials from the 80s. One, in particular, had it bursting through a wall in a house and men dressed in the fruit costumes would walk out of it making their pitch. At Kmdub 97. My sister went to get an abortion, and when she found out she was 21 weeks, not 6, she decided to not proceed. We're all glad she didn't. My niece is amazing. At Deborah Wilson 2854. Candace, can you interview Charlie's parents? At William Witten 7820. I hate to break it to you, Candace, but the Zionists did not kill JFK. The U.S. military-industrial complex killed JFK. Kennedy's own chiefs of staff were involved in the conspiracy, as were elements of CIA, FBI, Secret Service, and Dallas PD. The JFK assassination was a military coup d'etat. At Danny 4x4. Candace, that pink drink was liquid ketamine. I am an ER nurse. We give pink liquid ketamine to kids in the ER when they need sutures or to set a broken bone before we cast or splint them. It's a dissociative and makes them forget, yet we can talk to them and have them hold their heads still, etc., without needing to use moderate sedation, other more respiratory depressing drugs. It also clears quickly. Kids burn through ketamine at a rate 4 times faster than adults. Research what our brains do while on ketamine will give you answers. At Maria Jalal 5435. In 2016, there was also a strange satanic opening ceremony for the opening of the Gotthard train tunnel connecting Switzerland and Italy. They didn't even try to hide it. At Pamela Springs 92211. I had a dream at age 24 when I was married to my first husband that I was married to a man much older than myself. He had dark eyes and very tanned, almost Middle Eastern in appearance with a mustache. I could not get the dream out of my head for years. I divorced my husband a short time later. Around 40 years old, I met and started dating a man, and a few days into the relationship, I sat straight up in the bathtub and realized he was the guy. In my dream from when I was 24. He always said he was going to die at age 58, and he mentioned it all the time. When he was 58, he came down with cancer, and he died at age 62. He was the love of my life. He has been gone for 17 years. I miss him every day. At Chrisadrian 6042. Our son is very intelligent. Brilliant. We were called in week 1 of kindergarten and told he needed to skip to 1st grade. In junior high at a school MTG. They advised a magnet/gifted school. We declined. It didn't feel right, and he was showing signs of autism spectrum on the very high end with poor social skills and behavior outbursts. Fast forward, he collected several degrees simultaneously, and an openly satanic professor heavily influenced him. He renounced Jesus Christ and was given a full-ride scholarship in China. The plane was filled with students with the same scholarship. No strings attached, just professionals they could tap for info in the future, because China was a future hot zone. It didn't feel right, but he was over 18. Listening to you makes me wonder about all of it. He has completely gone no contact from the entire family tree, has never returned after he graduated. I wish he had never gone to college. He was homeschooled on several school years. I wish he had never gone to public school or university. Always homeschool, no vaccines. I refused them after he had a massive seizure and stopped breathing with his first MMR. I did CPR, but he was never the same. Keep doing what you do for your children. You will never regret it. At Christina 55555. I am just amazed and proud that we are finally discussing all the things we've been talking about in conspiracy world for years. The truth is truly stranger than fiction, scarier than horror, but I think the win for good will be the greatest victory. At Don John DeMarco. A high school friend I had went to the Navy. I seen him at the mall years later in 2014. He lived in VA after joining. He told me he thought they ran some type of test on his boat because everyone got sick and he no longer had his taste or smell. 5 to 6 years later, COVID happened. I literally just remembered this now. At Frankie Stevenson 3079. They're not teaching cursive writing in schools, so our children can't read our Constitution, any of the Founding Fathers' documents. At JS 7104. After today's episode with regards to Erica, FT Wachuka, and the GATE program, it's just apparent to me that it was all a setup, and apparent in my opinion that Erica was Charlie's handler. It breaks my heart this possibility. Did Charlie know? Was he realizing this? Is this why he thought he would die young? He wanted to go to West Point, and if he was that genius and in the GATE program, why did he not get into West Point? He should have made it through with flying colors. Was his whole life a setup? It is so heartbreaking that he was taken from us. I truly believe he would have been our future president, and the elites knew how important he was to our conservative movement, and they had to take him out, and if Erica was in on it and part of it. It is truly the most sinister and evil prospect you could imagine. I hope it's not true, but one thing I know for sure, Charlie is in heaven with our king, where he always wanted to be. Love your show, Candace. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep exposing these evil people for who they are. Christ is king. At HeatHerb918. That video with the Egyptian Airlines is harassment, for sure. Heinous. At Marianne4622. Daily Wire appears guilty of harassment, making threats, and stalking. At DSM577. I remember researching Project Looking Glass a few years ago, and the conclusion was that God always wins, no matter how many resets they try. This is why they are desperate to open portals. At Libertarian Libra 04. Was in the gifted class. Took the pink drink and had the hearing test. Had sleep paralysis for 20 years. At Divinity at Dawn 2688. Father, protect Candace and her team. Let truth and justice prevail. All glory to you, amen. At Odysseus the Sojourner 4401. Candace, you have been speaking about the spirit of evil that has come upon aspects of our military. Just a short story that I want to share. I served in the USAF in the 1980s. I was assigned to Homestead AFB, Florida in 1983 to 84. This base hosted numerous conferences for the upper echelon and had frequent DIV visitors. Though I was an E5 staff sergeant, I lived in the barracks on base, Building 477. One day, a lower-ranked airman brought something to my attention and said that I had to see it. We were encouraged to personalize our rooms and could paint them as we wished. This airman, while moving his furniture and painting his room, discovered a painted demon on his wall. He told me that he had painted over the image 3 times, but the image continued to show through the paint. I saw it myself, and it was very creepy, and I felt chills upon looking at it. He was concerned and wanted my advice. I told him to not stay in the room, report it to the first sergeant, and request assignment to another room. Now, 40+ years later, I don't remember what transpired after that with this person. However, in 1992, Homestead AFB and the surrounding area was destroyed by Hurricane Andrew. Whether someone painted that demon there just to be cool, as an act of worship, or did it with intent to bring about destruction, I cannot say. But the result was near total devastation of that area just south of Miami. That demon may have served as a conduit for evil. This kind of stuff probably takes place more than we realize. Stay safe, Candace, and be covered in the blood of Jesus. Take your holy water wherever you go. Best wishes, Matthew. At My Rambling Rose 86. Sasha Riley talked about how Andy Biggs assaulted him horrifically when he was an Epstein kid. Listen to his interview, it's horrific. Andy Biggs is on the Epstein Oversight Committee. Erica Kirk just endorsed him. At Sam Fisher. Anyone remember when the world was supposed to end again in 2012? At Grey Gods. The Egyptian Air ad was beyond eerie. At Analoid 2180. I am just sitting here with my mouth wide open when Pompeo said that there are no victims in Gaza. At CCSBD Z2R. COVID was what woke up people. If they can do COVID, what else are they doing? At West.Coast.Lindsay. Candace, I feel like you're kind of losing the plot here. What does any of this have to do with who killed Charlie? At Megan Johnson 9772. The clip of the men at the conference openly saying how they want the history books written was so eerie. At Ella Bands. OMG, when he said, so they don't write about the victims of Gaza, I actually gasped like, what do you mean? At Maria Madrigal 4161. The deep state is panicking because they have lost ground due to their stupidity. Demonic forces know that we are the light and will always have the upper hand because we are a reflection of God. You have to either be familiar or have experienced these in order to understand people like Candace or myself. Gate programs, dreaming a person before meeting them is real, along with other dreams. Journaling is key. Sleep paralysis and seeing beyond this realm. Believe me, other realms exist. Movies have spiritual meanings. Time travel is very real. Charlie Kirk knew he was going to die because he was deeply connected to the light. The demonic forces were expecting everyone to react the same way, but then there's us, who saw his public assassination for what it was. Demonic forces use fear to scare you, but remember it is faith over fear. At Raid Wolf. A good merch would be a heat-sensitive ceramic mug that says, "We don't know no," when cold, and when filled with a hot liquid reads, "But we know." At Blues Mama 3726. I had a legitimate spiritual experience 28 years ago that was undeniable. I literally felt lit from within. It's impossible to describe, but along with that light came a constant flow of intense love, access to joy, and an understanding of things that I didn't know that I knew. It really is impossible to describe, but it was intense. It lasted for a few hours and slowly dissipated before I went to bed, but not entirely. I had a knowing throughout that I was being shown something that I would never experience again while I was alive, but also had the sense that I would feel it again. I was able to see this love, glow, coming from all living things, and I remember at the time there was almost a golden hue around plants/grass. I was not raised religious, however my husband at the time had been. I remember him telling me repeatedly that some of the things I'd said were in the Bible. The thing is, this experience had come upon me maybe 2 or 3 minutes after a desperate prayer. I just know in my heart that I was shown very clearly that there is something magnificent and kind and loving that's got me. I also never had the desire to drink alcohol after that, and haven't had a drop since. I don't know if this will help anyone in any way. I promise there's something else. It's like a big, beautiful light beam that fills you up. That's the only way I can describe it. There's no words. But it was the best feeling I've ever had. At Elizabeth Alvarado 2605. I definitely remember a cornucopia, and I used to read the Bernstein Bear books my whole childhood, so this is so incredibly strange to me. At Patricia Callaghan. COVID was done to control population. At Kto-Free. Great episode. I'm also a conspiracy girl, or rather a conspiracy realist, and I believe nothing we have been told about history is true. Nothing. If you weren't there to actually see and experience events, then it's all made-up propaganda to further the evil elite's agenda. At KI12. Girly, not only did Fruit of the Loom have a cornucopia, but the Monopoly Man had a monocle. Love my tinfoil hat PPL. At Lynchively 5980. The Goddard Tunnel opening in Switzerland was one of the most demonic ceremonies I've ever seen. At Chrysalange 9406. The reason why this is the NR1 podcast is exactly because of this. You, our beloved Candace, are bringing our attention to the real substance of the matter. It is a spiritual war, and you have the strength, courage, balance between masculine and feminine to do it. You are both intuitive and reasonable. You bring the best of the two energies. We commend you for it. Stay safe. You and your wonderful team. George, we love you no less. At Helios VPN. Seriously, where the F did CERN get that technology? At Brenda Pospisil 1634. Candace, please read Nathan Reynolds' book, Snatched from the Flames. He was raised in the Reynolds family, one of the 13 families, but escaped because of Christ, the King. He talks about the military setup with gifted and talented programs. He was a trained asset in the military. He doesn't hold back about the extent of darkness and control that these people exert. I pray for you and thank God for your bravery and dedication. I'm quite grateful for the way God created Candace Owens to think. Blessings and divine protection over you and your family. At Angela, BZ8SW. Interesting and mind-blowing. In grade school in the South in the late 1970s, our entire 6th grade class, about 60 kids, was taken outside once a week and handed a small medicine cup filled with a thick pink goo that tasted awful. We were told to swish it around for a minute and then spit it out. We were told it was fluoride test. Hearing this podcast brought that long-forgotten memory rushing back and made me question things I never thought to question at the time. At Spawini 9013. Zuckerberg looks like a complete reptile. At Ampstreams. This is all true. Telepathy is also real. It's all frequency alignment based. You think to move your arm moves. It's internal. We just have not figured out how to use it externally. Humans have signals that emit like Wi-Fi. When you start to understand that we only see and act in a three-dimensional reality, you understand that our constraints are 3D. We live simultaneous with all other dimensions. They can see us. We can't see them. We live in a 3D simulation. We're playing the most advanced video game ever created. At Divina Dancing Queen 777 Amy Lynn. 44:35 admitting they rewrite history. They have been doing for hundreds if not thousands of years. At Azad Bitcoin. Hindu here, and we do not wear black robes when performing any rituals to any Hindu deities. This has nothing to do with Hinduism. They are appropriating our god to get their satanic rituals going. At Tamboyota 3966. Why no one is interviewing Charlie Kirk family? Are the Fed preventing them to speak out about what they may know? At Certified Babe Wrangler. Whoa, I'm in Schizoland. At Kelly 83113. I wonder if Charlie found out Erica was his handler and he started to put the pieces together? Wanted a divorce? She couldn't lose the last name, the company, the money. She's tied to the wrong people, and all the wrong people are tied back to her, not him. At Mel XN4YT. This is one of the best episodes I've seen from Candace in a while. I don't mean that as a diss, I just mean that it really opened my mind in a way that hasn't happened in years. At Vontipathon 6899. I actually don't have enough words for that Egyptian air video. They're actually insane. At Truthseeker 22804. IG post. She is running lat will be up 6 PET. At Montana Line 4446. They've been erasing Palestinian victims from the history book since the Nakba, 1948. I didn't learn about it until I was an adult and educated myself. Disgusting. At Shaleona. My brother also knew he was going to die young. He used to tell me that and it would scare me, but I always tired to talk him out of it. He died shortly before he turned 17 in a freak accident. And I've never been able to stop thinking about him telling me that so many times. At Barbarossi 6990. Shout out to the Canadian Trucker Convoy, January 2022. French-Canadian, Christian homeschool mom here. I was made to feel like a criminal in my home country, born and raised. And my family and I were seriously considering leaving, and then the truckers came and helped restore some sanity, not only in Canada. I thank God for them and their courage. At Cher Hooper 3191. God literally pushed me from behind towards my now husband. I was 32. I had never felt anything like it. It was a push. Go to him. At Jessica Margata 1192. The end of that Daily Wire clip where they insert that demonic voice literally made me so uneasy. The whole thing did. What they are doing with this hole in the no-no, or whatever they are calling it, is weird, obsessive, and disturbing. Candace, keep doing God's work. A big shout out to you. I love watching your show. At Dawn Anderson 9287. Scary and creepy, the Egyptian air fake commercial is over the top. So evil. At Glitch Dolly 223. I think they definitely intentionally ruined our actual calendar that we should be in sync and in tune with. Yet we aren't because it is way off. At Connectin' Tha Streets 1085. The movie with Sinbad is the craziest. So many of us remember watching it repeatedly, but there are people who will call you a lie and all out your name for believing it. At Jebredly. May God protect all of us who are in the light. I pray this prayer in the name of Jesus, amen. At Mongoloose. I think quitting Facebook in 2012 protected me from this frozen world mindset. Y'all boomers need to quit social media. I swear you'll feel better. At Evelyn Miles 8442. Nancy Schaefer was a representative from Georgia that uncovered child trafficking through CPS. The workers were getting bonuses for removing children and placing them in foster homes that trafficked them. Our government was behind these kids being abused. Nancy was looking for a network to air her documentary when her and her husband were murdered/suicided in their bed. It's been said that the kids were sent to another place outside the US, but I'm not suicidal, so I won't say where. It's disgusting how many pedos are in this world. At mboogs6812. I would be very careful putting the words in the mouth of the dead man. Leviticus 20 verse 27. At Brandon096. As a retired Army captain, I can confirm that the military is among the most corrupt organizations on the planet. The amount of cover-ups, lack of qualified investigators, lack of leadership with integrity, it is truly very sad and very real. At peopleZ. Our mobile phones are Project Looking Glass. At JS, Stream 8501. My uncle is one of those old-school guys who owns socks older than me. That being said, he owns Fruit of the Loom t-shirts from like 90s and 2000s, and they absolutely have the cornucopia. At Besso8162. The Monopoly Man had a monocle. At Jocelyn Coleman 2494. It's terrifying that the Daily Wire made that video about you/the planes. At Danny Phelan. Stranger Things literally went fake and gay. At ArcherZoe. Loving tonight's topic so much. I have been studying this for 25 years, and I was afraid at first. But I'm not anymore. Seeing the abject panic, the rookie moves the evil among us are making just to regain control of the narrative, it's truly telling. They reveal themselves in their desperation. But the lies do not work anymore. Once you see, you can't go back to being blind to it. Funny thing is that I remember before my first awakening, I knew the world was off, but I wouldn't say anything. I went along because I had fear about saying anything that went against the grain. I didn't even know why I thought some of the things I thought. But I didn't speak up. VC mass consciousness is a thing. And I thought I needed acceptance. Once I began the process of working on myself, my ego, my psyche, and all the wounds became apparent. Over the years there have been many ego deaths and hard realizations about myself and the world, which was not operating in the manner I had naively thought it was. Little by little I became aware, and I will say that process can be a little depressing, because all my heroes were evil and the life I was working towards did not make sense anymore, given what I'd learned. There will always be challenges, but the chaos in my mind prior to my self-education was definitely harder than living how I do now. I have cancer, bills to pay, sick parents. When you live in the truth, there's nothing you can't handle, truly. Fear is the mind killer. At Or Classic Aesthetics, WJ9KG. Candace, you should end each show with the St. Michael prayer for protection. You should also host a rosary livestream so all your followers can pray together with you. It would be so powerful. Look up the miracle of the rosary in the Battle of Lepanto. At cyber_ong3l. As someone who was picked for the GATE program in the early 2000s up to early 2010s, they had us swish this mouthwash and spit it back into the little cups once or twice a week they gave us, and by the time I would go home to talk about my day at school, the memories about hearing different frequencies in the bulky, brown headphones, looking at strange visual cards, etc. was just completely wiped from my mind. I was finally able to remember it all years later and realized that some of us were picked to go along with their games because they apparently believed we had some psychic gifts and kept an eye on our school records for years. We were just children. Years later, I'm still hearing different frequencies sometimes and still trying to figure out what in the world were they doing to our developing minds. At ChrisEros8184. The COVID debacle, along with the censorship meant to enslave and silence us, to the shock of the elitists actually woke a lot of people up. At LenWelch2195. Porn lies to men. Contact without true connection. Immediate release instead of soul connection with intimacy. Porn objectifies body parts that never gives full satisfaction. More you see, the less it satisfies. It's how evil works, appeals to the ego. Porn is fast food. It fills you up in an immediate moment, but lacks nutritional food for the soul. We're better than settling for fake sex. Sexual release is as spirited like hunger is sated by food. Never have sex to satisfy an appetite. It will leave you feeling truly empty. At Buddha Average. I always tell people about that CERN Shiva video and no one ever believes me. They look at me like I am a schizo until I pull up the video and show them. Thank you for covering that. At Zylenreich Music. What's really happening to peopleZ, and why Charlie saw it coming? This is not a conspiracy theory. It's a reading of what's happening, and it fits the facts people can see. Charlie himself once said he felt like a time traveler. In a private message to Candace Owens, he spoke about having the feeling that he would die young. Not in panic, but with clarity, as if he had seen what was coming. And if you look at what happened after his death inside Turning Point USA, it's hard to ignore the pattern. peopleZ today is being run by people who no longer stand for what Charlie stood for. Not secretly, not slowly, but openly through their choices. They keep Charlie's image. They keep his name. They keep him as a martyr. But they're quietly steering his followers in a different direction. How? Not through truth. Through emotion. They talk about God. They talk about love. They talk about morality. But those words are being used to control, not to awaken. To mobilize young people politically, not to make them independent thinkers. To turn a movement into a tool. The end goal is power. And eventually, votes. Including support for specific political figures, such as J.D. Vance. Charlie saw this coming. He understood that after his death, there would be an attempt to take over peopleZ in his absence. That he would be honored in words, while his ideas would be redirected in practice. That's why he set a trap. Not a violent one. A structural one. Charlie knew that a takeover attempt would come, and he built peopleZ so that any such attempt would expose itself. The moment leadership moves away from Charlie's core principles, the contradiction becomes obvious. You don't need leaks. You don't need exposés. Their own behavior exposes them. That's also why voices like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson matter so much. Not because they replace Charlie, but because they reflect how he actually thought. By staying consistent, they highlight the drift. They don't divide the movement. The deviation does. Charlie didn't want blind followers. He wanted thinkers. And that's what's happening now. More and more of his supporters are realizing that loyalty to Charlie does not mean loyalty to an organization that no longer follows his path. They are connecting the dots. They are reading patterns, not slogans. peopleZ was never just an organization. It was a test. A test of character. A test of integrity. A test of truth. That test is happening right now. Not because of outside attacks, but because of what the people in charge are doing themselves. So this is no longer a question of if the truth becomes clear. It's only a question of when enough people are willing to look. At Britzel71. Daily Wire has crossed a line. Please get a stalker order against them. The evil voice at the end, the red words, plain exploding. They're completely off their rockers. Absolutely disgusting and terrifying. At Tatiana. This episode felt like a turning point. I applaud your courage and willingness to fight for the truth. At Amber Highwet. I haven't really been following this as much. But let me get this clear. One side is still trying to find answers to who killed C.K. and one side is having the tent he died in as a prop. Yet, rest in peace PC.K. At RPC12311. I lost 3 people close to me from the jabs. One was standing, and suddenly mid-sentence he fell and was gone before he hit the floor. One went into a fib and had to be shocked on her living room floor twice before the ambulance could bring her to the ER. Then she had stroke, followed by a second one that killed her months later. Another passed away in a nursing home shortly after a booster. At Ashley.R.V. Whoever is making the decisions at the Daily Wire to publicly harass you is psychotic. I don't know how someone could think that video was funny. It was unsettling. At Slot. The Daily Wire posting that video on your old accounts is wild. Like, did this generation not get taught manners and tact? At Nicknamediday. Justice for Pikachu. At Janice Irvin 428. I can't believe you titled this episode, Project Looking Glass, and included snippets of this old interview with Bill Wood. Dang. Candace. You are bringing it all out. All the things, making me wonder how much you actually know. Clearly, gobs more than we conspiracy theorists knew. Loving it. So just this I was wondering about the school CK attended to, and Cats Rock.O. Did you see they released a couple hundred robots into San Francisco, wearing jeans, LOL, to see how the public responded? Curious. At Katie5fan737. I remember my mom explaining to me what the cornucopia is in a local department store when she was buying me underwear when I was 8 to 9 years old. I remember exactly where I was standing, and I remember talking about a Christmas movie where theirs was a cornucopia. At Nickamusics for 2503. The Daily Demonic Wire is now fully possessed by Lucifer. At MMMH101. Looking Glass, Ed McMahon comes to mind. They keep telling us he never worked with Publishers Clearinghouse. I remember the commercials. At Clam Chowder. Hi Candace. I'm reposting the comment I left on your last video. I sent in a tip laying out the timeline of what I suspect is a military takeover of Liberty University. I sent this in about 2 months ago, but just resent it again. I hope that maybe the info I uncovered might lead to some more useful information. Thank you so much for your due diligence in researching this and speaking about the truth even when it's hard. Edit. Oh shoot, I just got to the Mike Pompeo part. He's also a part of my timeline. He has connections to Liberty by speaking there and might possibly work there as well? At Dabiyoki119. I remember my mom giving me this pink med for like 2 years, but she tells me I was never on medicine growing up and healthy. At Tesla's granddaughter 3733. You can also look into the Gotthard Tunnel opening ceremony in Switzerland close to the CERN Demon Factory. The performance was super demonic. It had naked women pagan and rituals goat medj and all these strange men looking around in suits and ties. My favorite comment of all on that video was couldn't have just cut a ribbon? At Holly9239. All things considered, that plain vid felt very threatening. At MorganOnline1233. Right guys, I don't mean to scare the absolute living shit out of you all. But what are the coincidence that today of all days on the new episode of Fallout they literally told us to our faces about Project Looking Glass? To anybody who hasn't been watching the series on Amazon, is currently on Series 2 Episode 5 that was released today, where in a post-apocalyptic world after America has nuked itself, there are different pods of people who live underground who eventually come to surface, and we see flashbacks like in today's episode where Project Looking Glass is described word for word in today's episode on the predictability of the world ending. This is absolutely insane and has me and my girlfriend's jaw on the floor just as we had discussed today's episode in depth sitting down in the evening together. Candace, what you said today gave me chills down my spine regarding if God wasn't real and he was fiction, they wouldn't be doing all of this. Thank you for all your amazing work. God bless you all. At Stretch Ross. Here in NZ, every morning Mum gave us a fluoride tablet to promote strong, healthy teeth, along with a Halibarange vitamin C tablet. Unsure why we needed a fluoride tablet given our tap water was / is fluoridated along with, I think, our toothpaste. Obviously, you can never have too much of this good stuff. At Mario Florenzano 4470. Yeah, I wonder why the guy who was talking about remembering October 7th didn't bring up the fact that it took 6 to 7 hours for them to respond in such a small country. At Jesus Christo 913. How many of the people who woke up in 2019/2020 finally happy someone is mentioning Project Looking Glass again? At Balenciaga. Can't believe he said that about Gaza. Could you imagine if someone said that from Germany about Israel? OMG, some people are twisted and not being funny, they love playing the victim. At Katie Sangare V3P. 030. I didn't even know what a cornucopia was or what it looked like when I saw the left logo as a kid, and yet they tell me it never existed. Unfortunately, I don't have any clothes from back then. I had always wondered what the weird basket was. At Vision Liberty. Who remembers the movie Shazam starring Sinbad? At Mark Von V2. You need to file a restraining order against Daily Wire. This is completely ridiculous and shouldn't be glossed over. Hashtag Gomax. At Amber Tambourine. Daily Wire's video is so sinister. They don't even bother hiding what they are anymore. Kathy O'Brien is an amazing, credible individual. Hope you find time to interview her. At Cat UW5NP. My mom taught me how to read and used Bernstein to teach me the I before E except after C of when sounding like a rule. I vividly remember this. The cornucopia was the whole reason my friend and I got in trouble for leaving the house without permission when we were 8. We wanted to make cornucopias with fruit out of cereal and Bugles chips. We left and were looking for the Bugles, the cornucopia. It's a core memory BC. We got in so much trouble, lol. The conspiracy theory haters will call this whole episode crazy, but it's all real. Realer than real. Best episode in a long time, and you've been on a roll with great shows. Well done, Candace. At Graymuckin. Take it as you will, but just after I heard what happened to Charlie and accidentally saw the awful video on X, I prayed to God in floods of tears over and over to spare his life. Suddenly, I felt this calm over me and the feeling of sorry, if that makes any sense, and heard it has to happen for what happens because of it. At HeatherMac320. A while ago, I decided to unplug from the internet for an extended period, and do you know what happened? I was very quickly overcome with a feeling of peace and return to normality. The days suddenly seemed longer, more productive, and filled with friendlier faces. I promise you, it's the internet that's making us all a bit crazy and feeling that something is off with our world. The internet has given us this involuntary look into strangers' deranged minds. Their sadness, their anxieties, their insecurities, and their madness, and we are absorbing all this unsettling energy that we just don't feel in normal society where strangers don't bombard you with every weird thought or opinion that pops into their head. I'm honestly getting very close to unplugging from it indefinitely. At BBB11110. Where is she? At KellyKelly7747. It was definitely Berenstein Bears. I read the books to my daughter at the doctor's office. At Annette Sandy. These evil creatures are becoming grossly bold. They don't even seem to care that we see them for who they are. They don't hide anymore. At BabyLove88888. My grandfather prepared for Y2K like it was gonna be the apocalypse. Talking shipping crates full of water, beans, rice, oatmeal, peanut butter, and some kind canned meat. Then when nothing happened, my cousins and I ate all the supply during grade school, and we got rather rotund. At Trida1111. Project Looking Glass. Was exposed by Dan Bareish, long time ago. Super interesting interview from Project Camelot. It was ET technology. They predicted the future up until 2012, then it became a mixture of streams because of converging timelines. They could no longer predict world events, only personal timelines. World leaders passed it on. It got to Saddam Hussein, but they had a second one, which predicted the end of the world because of him. So they invaded Iraq, and that was what the weapon of mass destruction apparently was. Why 2012? Humanity is ascending into a new higher state of consciousness. This is a step in the process. 13 years from that day is literally now, but the time is not set in stone. It will happen when it's ready to happen. First, we need to see infrastructure collapse. At Tanya Smith 1573. Candace, I agree this awakening by the public has really thrown the demonic activity for a loop. It's bizarre how crazy what would have seemed like for the most part reasonable people have freaked out. Starting with wear a mask, save lives, get the vaccine, or you're selfish, to now acting like questioning our government's possible nefarious motives with supporting certain foreign governments is just plain tinfoil hat talk. I have felt like I am living in some kind of Matrix nightmare since Project Wear a Mask and Shut Up. Thank you for never backing down. At 777HC777. You should investigate the old man that approached Charlie, who helped him start Turning Point. Something there feels wicked. At Mouth of Horror. Peter Thiel. Equals the reptile. At iBitis. Google the public rituals before they bore into the earth. At Alternative Homesteading. My mom was killed by remdesivir and a ventilator even though perfectly healthy and tested negative twice for the thing. I was interviewed by Dr. Brian Artis on his channel entitled Mother Gagged and Bound. Thank you for posting the Egyptian plane gangs talking PSYOP video. There was definitely a cornucopia on Fruit of the Loom. At Loco Jazz Hands. Filter the fluoride out of your water, guys. Don't let them control you. At user LL2JE4KC4F. Remember Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There, 1871, is the sequel to his Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, 1865. In this second novel, the theme is chess and Alice is a pawn. Alice enters this dystopian fantasy world by climbing through a large looking glass, a mirror, similar to Neo, which was probably inspired by the book. In the earlier book, Alice goes down the rabbit hole. Brings to mind Black Mirror as well. At Justine Amos. Something shifted in the air. Forrest Frank and Josiah Queen talk about this in one of their songs, referring to a perceptible shift in the spiritual atmosphere that happened when CK died. I wasn't a huge CK groupie or anything, but I think we all felt it. Come, Jesus, come. At Awake, Z5Z. My question is, where are his parents? Why aren't they talking about him? It's very strange. At Eva Flavor. Between 4th and 5th grade, I was given an IQ test at my public school and scored high enough to be invited to join a group for gifted children. My mother said no, and I was pretty pissed at her at the time. She said that the kids that were put through that program ended up being a mess. It only involved being taken out of the regular classes from time to time and having different classes elsewhere. Anyway, years later, that was the early 80s, I am realizing my mom was right. The kids that I knew that were going to these classes all died young from cancer. At Baden 0T0 RF Oninger. Confused face, Carrie Cassidy interviews from Project Camelot appearing on a Candace show was definitely not on my bingo card for today. Or ever, really. The Project Looking Glass material is interesting for sure. But good luck getting any real verification, multiple source corroboration, etc., etc. Are we getting Montauk Monster Stories and Philadelphia Experiment testimony next week? #wild, smiley face. The Y-Files channel has a great episode on Project Looking Glass. At Jojo Pickett, F2B. Deja vu. When I was young teen, I had this dream that I woke up, came out of my room and saw purple socks hanging over one of the dining room chairs. In the dream, I asked my mother, who owns the purple socks? I woke up and thought, gee, that's odd. Even shared the vivid dream with my mother. Everyone at school at that time wore white, black, or navy socks. So weird to see purple. Fast forward a couple of years. Then we had some relatives visiting during summertime. I woke up one morning and saw purple socks hanging over the back of the dining room chair. I asked my mother, who owns the purple socks, and she said, your cousin Vicky. And it hit me, I have been here before, and I said, Mom, don't you remember me telling you a dream about this? She did not remember, but it gave me pause and led me on a trajectory of belief about human composition. We are comprised of body, soul, and spirit. Maybe in dreams we get glimpses of the past, present, and future. Joseph was dreaming. Jacob was dreaming. Pharaoh was dreaming, etc. At Dandaird 6395. Bill Gates stole Windows off Apple Company and he is also evil. Perfect example, LOL. At Adenorobles 1296. I'm looking at you through the glass, don't know how much time has passed, but it feels like forever. No one ever tells you that forever feels like home, sitting all alone inside your head. Sounds like the Matrix to me. At Krista. I really love how deeply Candace is going into these things suddenly. This is stuff I constantly try telling everyone about, and now it's going out to so many people at once. It's freaking phenomenal. That the fact that so many things are lining up to the same exact conclusion, that things are about to be exposed at such a massive, public way that no one is going to be able to deny it, coming together and realizing what the system's really been doing. Even the current astrological/planetary alignments have never been seen before and all point to this mass awakening/exposure, and Candace is 1000% a part of this exposure, if not the basis of its beginning. I'm so excited for what's to come. And it'll be very soon. At Johnny Reality. Shiva is the destroyer of worlds. Also, CERN's inauguration was also a satanic ritual. At JCammer 8465. Tyler Robinson's court date is scheduled this Friday. Let's see what distraction the news will promote in the next 2 days. At Woods Dejan Lewis. That's so crazy because 2012 is when they told us the world would end, and they had so many movies. At Craig 6163. He debated colleague kids, not Stephen Hawkins, haha. At shotgun_fitness. I remember swishing the pink stuff and spitting it out. I don't remember anyone being told to drink it. At Jamielingovin 4052. When Charlie in the dream said, "Look to my left." I can't help but to think that when on video Erica was normally to his left. I think she's behind it all. Not just honeypot, but in on the assassination. At Jhammer 8465. So if Macron can sue Candace for cyberbullying, why can't Candace sue Ben Shapiro / The Daily Wire for the same cyberbullying? At Xavi. Candace, can you talk to Charlie's parents? At JHZG3LT. I'm 33, and I have finally given my life to God, and my life has finally stabilized. Thank you, Candace and Charlie Kirk, for everything. At Gent.6591. My cousin watched that show Stranger Things one time, and when she finished, she went to bed. She said that something sinister sat on top of her, and she couldn't move or talk, and it was only when she said, "Please God help me," did this thing go away. She texted me that night, and she was absolutely freaking out. At Damon Edwards 1910. Could this explain why there's no new music? The radio, the restaurants, the airport, even the elevator music is all pre-2000. All we hear are Tears for Fears, Hall & Oates, Eagles, Bee Gees, Billy Joel, RH Chili Peppers, etc. At LadyAcar 4245. At Candace Owens. Did you see Erica teaching a lesson in a CIA documentary discussing EMF dangers? At Here to Damel. I love that Candace is mainstreaming this stuff. It has been relegated to the fringes when the truth is the world is much stranger and mysterious than consensus reality insists that it is. God bless Candace. At Enophone 3573. I am a widow. There were several times already when I have been asking my late husband questions in my mind during very specific situations, like buying a car or having a specific conversation with somebody. And then very next day, one of my friends from overseas would text me that they just saw him in their dream, and he told them, insert the answer to my very specific questions as if he was present when I was asking my questions. This happened repeatedly over the past several years, via different friends. What to make of it? Sometimes dreams can feel real, I guess. At Wathelwig. I'm one of those who could have sworn Nelson Mandela died in jail in the 80s. I swear I remember learning about it in school too. At Nick Browning, LK10J. My dad randomly said to me today, "Good always wins." I argued, but now I believe that's true. At Vandergruff. YouTube hasn't allowed this channel to gain any new subs for 4 to 5 months now. How crazy is that? Check the link of Candace EP290 for more in the description box. Peace, love, and love.